Hello everyone and welcome back to Red String of Fate. So in the last part we came to Luke's house. I think we were doing like a study date kind of thing, and we found out he has a pretty extensive book collection, like lots of old rare books. So why didn't you go to the party with Aaron? Oh yeah, and we also could have chosen to go to the party, but we're doing the Luke route right now. Huh? What? Oh wait, I was doing voices, I forgot. Huh? What do you mean? Luke fidgets a little, his fingers toying with a stray thread in his sweater. I don't remember what voice I did for him. I think it was like, "Isn't he a good friend of yours? Why didn't you go to the party with him?" Sure. What? Oh. Yeah, I've known Aaron since high school. Not well, but still. We're friends now, I guess. But, well, you know why I turned that offer down. I went to a gathering, not even a crowded party, once in high school, and I immediately regretted it the second I walked into the room. Way too many people. A frown briefly appears on his forehead before he understands my meaning, and he nods in comprehension. Unfortunately, at this reminder of the one thing we have in common, our heated conversation from the other day resurfaces in my mind, and from the way Luke is averting his eyes, I'm sure he's remembering the same incident. The tension returns, and the silence drags on until it finally becomes too intolerable. Ooh, okay, I'm gonna save. Let's ask him, I'm curious. Well, since we're pretty much already on this topic, I might as well ask about it again, right? He might have apologised for his behaviour in the library, but he still hasn't explained why he would react that way. Taking a deep breath, I let the question burning in my mind fall out of my mouth. You still owe me an explanation for what happened in the library that time, you know? Why are you so bitter about our ability to see the strings? Why do you pretend they don't exist? The temperature in the room seems to drop rapidly, and I shiver, strangely nervous. Luke doesn't react for a long minute, and I was almost convinced that he didn't hear my question at all. Well, he doesn't look too happy about it. Luke? Luke turns to me slowly, almost wearily like an old man, his shoulders slumped as though he's bearing the weight of the world. There's a tired look on his face, rather than a taut expression of frustration as I had expected. Maybe he is like really old. Maybe he's like Edward Cullen, and he's actually 107. I assume you've looked into the origins of the legend of Red Strings of Fate. Yes, of course. Everything I can get my hands on. I expected as much. He nods, more to himself than as a response to me. Disregard everything they say. They're all false. What? Stunned, I can only splutter in response. You should know by now, legends are just that. Legends. Except Red Strings of Fate do exist. Unless we both share the same delusion, Red Strings of Fate are real. They are real. I never said they aren't. Just don't believe everything else the legend says. We've already seen that the legends are wrong about how a Red String of Fate can stretch and tangle, but never break. Aaron is living proof of that. Man, I'm trying to play this game, but this one player just keeps kicking my ass. The Legend 27. That is the most fundamental part of this theory. If the legends are wrong about that, what else did they get wrong? I swallow hard, speechless, my stomach lurching from discomfort, and a fear that I don't quite understand. What are you implying? If it's possible, Luke's expression looks even more weary, and he rubs his eyes. I'm not implying anything. I don't know that much more about these strings than you do. I just have my own theories. What are your theories? Or what are your theories, I guess. Luke's lips pressed together so tightly that they almost turned white. They are just meaningless theories. You wouldn't believe them anyway. Clearly he's reluctant to tell. As much as I'm annoyed by how tight-lipped he is about all this, I understand his aversion to talking about it. After a lifetime of hiding this secret from everyone, trying to appear as normal as possible, suddenly opening up about this can't be easy, especially given Luke's private, quiet personality. Alright? Silence hangs between us, the tension thick and smothering. Finally, I sigh, and Luke's eyes flick to mine before darting away again. I'm sorry for getting sidetracked. Should we get back to our work? Man, come on! We should. We need to finish our work before my grandma calls. I nod blindly, turning my blank eyes back to my books. What the hell does he mean by what he said? What does he know? What theories does he have? It looks like I have more research to do. I'm going to get to the bottom of this if it's the last thing I do. I wish they'd just stop being so secretive. Like, I know they have to kind of drag it out for the sake of gameplay, but just tell me. I drum my fingers against the table as I flip the page, taking in the lines of text as quickly as possible. The clock continues ticking loudly in the quiet library, its steady rhythm as an almost hypnotic spell trying to lure me to sleep. Feeling my drowsy eyes start to close, I quickly shake my head and give my cheeks a light slap. No, I can't sleep at work. Just 2 more hours left, then I can head back to my room and rest. After finishing the 2,000-word essay due tomorrow that I haven't even started yet, trying to stifle a yawn, I turn the page again, feeling a rush of disappointment at seeing the chapter on Red Strings of Fate end. Damn it. All these books in the library just talk about the same things over and over. 5 books and an entire shift at the library later, I've learned absolutely nothing new about the legend of Red Strings of Fate. Frustrated, I let my head fall onto the surface of the table face first, closing my eyes with a groan. Damn you, Luke Hayden. Why can't you just stop being so unforthcoming and just tell me what you know? Another heavy groan escapes me, and I start hitting my head lightly against the desk. Val, are you alright? I was just about to say someone's probably going to walk up. Huh? What? Just slide in. My head snaps up so fast that I almost give myself whiplash, and I see Luke standing in front of me, trying to stifle an amused grin. Speak of the devil? Flustered, I return his smile, trying to smooth my hair and appear casual. Oh, hey Luke, what are you doing here? His gaze falls briefly onto the pile of books in his arms, and I titter, heat now starting to... Whoops! Didn't mean to do that. Heat now starting to rise in my cheeks. Great. Why do I always end up looking like wow, irony. A brainless, clumsy airhead in front of Luke. He has a penchant for catching me at my worst moments somehow. Right, of course. This is a library. Of course you're here to borrow books. I feel, well, it is like, it's kind of a trope that main protagonists are usually kind of clumsy and awkward, and they think, why would the guy ever like me? I'm just like an awkward loner type. For once, I think it would be interesting to see like a really cool, calm and collected main character, rather than clumsy main characters, because I feel like it's a bit overdone. Like, I'm not saying it's bad, I think it would be interesting. You want to check out these books? Just hand them over here. Luke heaves the books onto the counter, his lips curved into a slightly hesitant smile. Thanks, Val. I grab the first book on the pile to scan the barcode, and the title of the second book on the cover catches my eye. I fail to bite back a giggle. Luke looks confused for a moment before realization dawns on him, and in a swift movement he removes 3 books from the pile and holds them behind his back. My giggle turns into full-blown laughter at Luke's mortified expression. I didn't expect you to have this kind of taste in books. These are for an essay for class. I have to write on women's sexuality and literature. I don't usually read these for fun. Sure you don't. Is that a stutter I detected in his voice? Is that a faint blush on his cheeks? Grinning in amusement, I can't resist teasing him. It's alright, your secret is safe with me. Luke doesn't respond, the colour on his cheeks darkening as his eyes dart away from mine. Taking pity on him, I keep my remaining teasing comments to myself and return to my task of checking his books out for him. There's a prolonged silence as I work, neither of us starting a conversation. Once again, we're back at the awkward silent stage after our last conversation about Red Strings of Fate. It appears every time we talk about the strings, this is the outcome, the tentative friendship we've struck up disappearing into thin air. Ironic, considering it's the one connection we undoubtedly share with each other and no one else. One would think it would bring us together rather than push us apart. I peek up at him and he seems to be shifting his weight back and forth, his gaze on the windows. I clear my throat, deciding to make some small talk to try and make amends yet again. So, what class is that? Huh? Noting Luke's confusion, I elaborate. What class do you have to read those books for? Speaking of which, you need to give them to me or else I can't check them out for you. Slowly, with clear reluctance, Luke returns the books to their original positions on the pile, and his reply is so soft that I can barely hear him. Gender, sexuality, and literature. Right, that makes sense then. When is the essay due? This Friday. I pull a sympathetic face, pausing to type in the serial number of the book in the computer, since the barcode scanner decides to malfunction as usual. I reach for the next book, unable to resist peeking at the name again. W.H. Auden, huh? Which is your favourite poem of his? Luke straightens and a glint enters his eyes. Funeral Blues. Do you know that poem? I scrunch up my face, making a wild grasp at the vague memory flitting at the edge of my mind. Is that the one that starts with "stop all the clocks" or something like that? One of these days I'm going to mess up and accidentally not pronounce the L in clock. Luke's face brightens and he gives an enthusiastic nod. He seems impressed by my knowledge, and there's a new warmth in his eyes as he regards me with an appreciative stare. Just like that, our easy friendship has returned, and I find myself relaxing. Right. I remember that from my literature classes in high school. It's quite a sweet but sad love poem, isn't it? It's not a love poem. Well, not really. Do you know that the poem was originally a satirical piece in a play? Really? I didn't know that. He later changed it to make it less satirical, but to be honest, the sarcastic tone still remains. On the surface, it is a dramatic love poem, but there's a second, widely different analysis. Almost excitedly, Luke grabs the book and flips it open to the page where the poem in question is printed. He points to the page and I follow his gaze. Sorry. It's hard reading. Look, see how perfectly structured the poem is, almost overly so for a poem about a hysterical lover mourning the partner's death. Perfect rhyming couplets, quatrain, iambic pentameter. The poem is littered with hyperboles to the point where it feels like he's mocking the melodramatic analogies that people use to describe their mourning for lost love. It's hard to maintain that voice while talking fast. For example, this line. Luke's sentence trails off suddenly, and there's a visible flush on his cheeks as he closes the book. Oh, I'm sorry, I got carried away. I study him, fascinated by the abrupt change of demeanour. I've never seen him as animated as he was when talking about the poem. Clearly he's passionate about what he studies, and he's in his element when it comes to literature. No, it's intriguing. I've never thought of the poem that way before. I'd love to hear more. Well, it's just one of the possible readings of the poem. It's up to the readers to interpret, of course. And you prefer this analysis? Luke nods, raising his gaze to mine. You? Which do you prefer? I don't have a preference. I'm not going to save because I don't think it's that big a deal, but I don't really have a preference, I think. Both are interesting and seem like valid interpretations. That's the cop-out answer. Luke seems surprised, blinking at me without a word. What, did you not expect that answer? I mean, if he hates it, we'll take it back. No, you're usually so optimistic that He gives me a sheepish smile and I grin back at him. I mean, I'm not denying that your analysis is super pessimistic. Yes, but it's also realistic, isn't it? I cock my head at his reply, eyeing him with interest and surprise. You don't believe in love? He gives a casual shrug. Perhaps. I gape in disbelief at his flippant attitude towards something as serious as doubting the existence of true love. But how is that possible? You're a literature student. Everyone knows literature is full of poems and stories about romantic love. It's like one of the greatest subjects to write about of all time. I mean, and he can see people's red strings. Yeah, besides, what about the strip? I cut myself off, mindful of anyone walking by who can accidentally overhear our conversation and learn of our secret. I expected Luke to shut down immediately at the mention of the red strings of fate, like he usually does, but surprisingly, this time, perhaps because of his good mood, he reacts differently. He simply continues smiling and shrugs again. Poems about romantic love are overrated. What do you write about then? Everything except that. Friendship, family, nature, life, death. You know, the certainties in life. God, he's so depressing. After all, love isn't everything, even though many people believe so. Still in disbelief, I can only shake my head. His smile widens into a teasing grin. Am I the one who was shocked to you this time? Definitely. I really wasn't expecting this. I continue eyeing him with a mixture of confusion and fascination while he returns my gaze with amusement. Huh. A literature student who studies love poems on a daily basis but doesn't believe in love. He clearly hasn't been listening to enough Cher. and a seer of red strings of fate who doesn't believe true love exists. My eyes flicker down to the absent place on his finger where his red cord should have been, and I can't help but wonder, could his attitude towards love have something to do with that? As though sensing my train of thought, Luke's smile dims slightly, but he remains polite and friendly. Well, as much as I want to stay and continue chatting, I'm afraid I have to run, or else I'll be late to my next class. Would you mind checking out the rest of the books for me? He tips his head in the direction of the books still lying in front of me. Oh, right, I almost forgot. Sorry. I jerk back to action, rushing through the motions. When I'm finished, I hand the books back to him and watch as he places them carefully into his bag. Here, sorry about the delay. No problem. Thanks a lot, Val. I'll see you around. See ya. So, I don't mean this in a bad way, but this really feels like a story that was just like a written story at first, and then they made it into a dating sim. Slinging the backpack over his shoulder, he turns to walk away, and I can only stare at his retreating figure, my mind buzzing with more unanswered questions. Something I have come to expect is a necessary consequence to every encounter with Luke. I hum to myself as I make my way back to campus, my spirits high despite the long shift at the restaurant. A grin climbs onto my face as I slide my hand into my pocket, feeling the heavy metal coins and crisp bills. I love it when some rich Chinese tycoon comes in for a meal and gives a generous tip. Well, I don't work in retail or, I'm not a waitress, but from what I've heard, rich people tip the worst. Like, poor people tend to tip better, but rich people kind of undermine the value of the service, if that makes sense. I don't know, like, they don't think the people who do these jobs, like pizza delivery or being a waitress, they don't think they work hard enough, so they don't tip them as well. Or something like that from what I've heard. Smiling to myself, I continue down the street, a spring in my steps. I peek at my watch, surprised to find that I'm actually going to be early for my shift at the library, since my shift at the restaurant ended early. In no hurry to arrive at my next part-time job, I let my footsteps slow. What should I do since I have some time to kill? I mean, I could go back to my dorm room first and work on my essays, but do I really want to? I make a face at the thought. I mean, you have to do like 2,000 words in a day, so you should probably get started. I don't want to ruin my good mood with homework. A couple is heading in my direction, laughing loudly at a shared joke, and as usual, my eyes are drawn to the happy couple. A quick glance at their joined hands confirms my suspicions that their strings lead to each other. How sweet. So, because it's not specifying, I'm interpreting that as being a gay couple. As they pass by, I can't help but overhear their playful banter. Oh no, it's going to say like girl and boy. I'm not letting you choose the location for our date again. I've learned from the last disaster. Yeah. Oh well, they're still gay in my heart. Wow. Hey, it wasn't a disaster. I almost fell off the cliff because you had the brilliant idea of taking me hiking in high heels. We're going to the beach this weekend, alright? No ifs or buts. No coconuts. I don't remember what that's from. I think it's from Family Guy. I don't know. You're so bossy. But you love me for it. I haven't watched Family Guy in ages, by the way. I'm not 13 anymore. The boy sighs in exasperation, but the love in his voice when he speaks is plain as day. God knows why, but I do. The girl whispers something I can't hear, followed by a light giggle, the sound full of bliss. A wave of jealousy rushes through me, so acute that I freeze for a moment. My eyes flutter shut, surprised by the intensity of my feelings. I want that. I want to be able to have silly, flirty conversations with my soulmate like that. I want to be able to lean against his arm and stare up into his eyes like that. Why is the universe so unfair to me? I swallow hard and try to shake these depressing thoughts away. It is an interesting topic because are you necessarily gonna stay with your soulmate once you found them in this universe? Because this couple that we just passed, they were each other's soulmates, but they could break up, and then what happens? Do you get a new soulmate, or do you never find your soulmate again? Like, it's interesting. No, I can't think like that. I'll find my soulmate soon, I know that. Everything is going to be okay. I try to redirect my attention towards my previous dilemma, finding something to do to kill time for my next shift. Perhaps it's because of the young couple's conversation, or perhaps it's because of my sudden emotional vulnerability, but the first place that pops into my head is the beach. I hesitate for a second. I haven't been to the beach in ages, not since my father passed away when I was a child. Too many memories, one can say. Should I? Okay, so I'm going to end this episode here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. The Walking Dead is back on the 28th, so I'll hopefully have the new episodes up on the 29th, or at least the first part of it. And I'll see you guys all in my next video. Bye everyone!